Hi, and welcome to episode number 5 on Strathclyde Stories. I have Nithi Sevaguru with me. And in this episode, we're going to talk about careers, opportunities, and networking at Strathclyde. So, if you're just finishing your graduation at Strathclyde or planning to do one, this would be one of the episodes you need to listen to so that you know how to plan for your career after your graduation, but right at the point when you're doing your graduation. Nidhi, welcome to episode number 5. Glad to connect with you again.
Thank you very much to be invited. It's a pleasure to talk about Strathclyde, of course.
Right. So let me quickly start with the question. Here it is. How is the Strathclyde's career services or career support services for students? Could you shed some light on that?
Oh, yes, sure. I think the UK universities in particular have a very different way of providing career services, right? Very different from the way in which it happens in the Indian market. So I think what's important to say is, yes, there is a career services available at the university, which students can access to. And this is certainly useful for students who want to, for example, understand what they should put onto their CV, what are the things they should be saying, should not be saying. There is a format wherein which you do not have to reveal certain identities about yourself in the UK market. And that's because, of their own protection that they could have for themselves. And, these are things that needs to be followed. So career services is great help when it comes to that. And they're very happy to look at your CV and give you recommendations on changes that you can possibly make so that it's very close to the kind of job in which that you're looking for, right? So the career services is not something that you should look at as it's helping somebody in groups of hundreds and 200. No, you got to look at it as me, myself, how I could avail the services of the career services, approach them and say, this is the kind of work that I like to do. What do you think I should have on my CV? So that's when it's really helpful. So it's very, very personalized, right? It's very important to understand that. You take ownership of your career and you ask the university, what is it that I need to put in? So it's fantastic. Career services are fabulous. There are also a number of events that happens during the year. There are workshops that are run for people in terms of, how to get your CV right, or, the kind of, that can come online. Employers, for example, would like to attract students to come and work for them. And as you know, Strathclyde is one of the top business schools in the UK. So certainly they will be happy about applications coming from Strathclyde. And therefore, you're one plus by having that decision to go to Strathclyde in the first place. So you've done that big step already crossed. And now you can attend these online events. There are also recruitment events that happens online. A number of things that are happening actually online these days. So to summarize, all I would say is, yes, career services are there, and the workshops that were run for helping students to get their CV right is also there, and also online events, employers who are attracting applications into their organization. So all of these are certainly there. So please remember one thing, that the CV is something that gets developed over a period of time. So you cannot, for example, start in the month of September and say, my CV is all set and ready in 1 week. No, it just develops because there are many things that you will be adding. You'll also be adding certain internships that you're likely to do at the end of the year. So the CV is a developmental process. In my experience, I know that I have worked on my CV perhaps maybe 20 times before I got it right, ready to go to pass it on to an employer.
Right. That's the whole deal of work you do. And you get a great support. That's what I understand from the conversation we have now. All right. So we are having this great support. How about the graduate employability for the University of Strathclyde?
Right. Glad you asked me that. To my understanding, I think there is a published statistics which says over 92% of Strathclyde graduates are either employed or have gone on to do further study. And that doesn't necessarily mean the 8% are failures, by the way. It just simply means that people have perhaps gone into self-employment. They could have gone back to their family businesses. There could have been a number of things that could have happened as well. So it doesn't really mean, 92% success and 8% failure. So don't interpret that wrongly. There are a number of things that people actually do. And as I said, you've taken that big step of Strathclyde as a decision to go, already a good one in your CV. And now it's a question of working towards it. So I think when it comes to employability, there is an automatic recognition from the corporate world that, somebody has studied at Strathclyde, so they got to have some brains. Also because Strathclyde is internationally present, right? It's because it's business schools and its MBA programs that's been spread across Asia. The university in itself has become popular. So regardless of what degree you're doing, it is, in a sense, very well recognized. So the employability component, I think, is also confined to where you want to work and, which particular country or kind of job role. All that matters, isn't it? Because there are some people who are going in to do a master's degree for a reason of a career change, for example. So when you're doing a career change, obviously, what it means is the last 4 or 5 years of your work experience, you don't want to have a job in, right? You want to get into a new job. So it would take you a while before corporates actually say, well, okay, I'm fine for this transition that you're making, and I think you will do well. Because past performance here has got nothing to do about the future role that you're looking into, correct? I think it's very important for students to also be patient about what they're looking for. It might come slower and might not come in the speed in which that they're looking for. But employability in a true sense is an effort one needs to put in. So it's kind of two hands together. There's a university that's helping you, and then you've got your hand. Make sure that you're kind of, tagging on to each other and take control of your career. So I can't see myself as someone who's come out of Strathclyde who's not successful. I mean, I've not really come across someone, if there's anyone I would like to meet and find out why. But certainly not to my understanding. So I think when it comes to employability, Strathclyde is doing a fairly fantastic job.
So it's not that the 8% is left out. What I can understand from your conversation is that they've been there, they've done that, and they've just gone back to, whatever they were doing. That's what it is, right? It's not that they were seeking employment or they wanted to start something. They already were doing something and they've just gone back. So this is what I can make.
Possibly.
That means that Strathclyde's education investment in terms of ROI is fantastic.
Right. And ROI also has to be seen in a proper context, right? It also means that people have their own interpretations about ROI. I have invested £25,000 and I want to get the £25,000 in 6 months. Well, that there are people who are looking into that kind of a speed of recovery. So unless I get £50,000 in my salary for the next year, then the ROI was bad. I mean, really? I mean, it just depends on how individually people interpret ROI, right? The fees in the UK is expensive. That's true, okay? When you look at it from a conversion point of view from India, sure enough, it is expensive. But the point of the matter is you are actually setting yourself on a path for the next 2 to 3 years. So the ROI expectations must also be reasonable, right? One can't say that because I spent £25,000, I want this recovered in 6 months' time. One has to be reasonable, right? It could possibly take 2 years or 2.5 years or whatever it may be. It depends. All the more the reason when I gave you the earlier example of those who are making a transition to a different career, they have to be patient because it's not the past experience kind of a job that they're looking for, right? So I think ROI must be seen with a pinch of salt in a true sense of how somebody makes an interpretation of it. But there is an ROI, yes. How quick do you want that ROI to happen? I think it's in individuals' hands and not to be psychologically defeated because you're not recovering that in 1 year, right? because it could take longer than that. It just depends. So it's certainly ROI is there. And that's the very reason in which one makes the decision of doing a degree at Strathclyde anyway.
Absolutely. I totally agree to what you just said. Let's talk about Strathclyde's network. So how does Strathclyde's network help a student regarding a career or planning, for the future, let's say, global career?
All right. Yeah, brilliant. I think this is the right question at the right time, because in the earlier talks, we talked about getting in touch with alumni for whatever study program that one is aiming for, right? Talk to the people in different industries who have done different degrees. And if your degree is connected to what you're looking for with an alumni, have a conversation and go on. So just as pretty much as how you actually, connected with alumni before you started your study, I think it's also very important when you are in your study during your year, try and get in touch with alumni who are working in different fields. Perhaps it could be the very same people that you spoke to before, and now you can come back to them and say, hey, listen, I talked to you before, and now I've made the decision, and I'm at Strathclyde, and I am doing this degree, and I want to get connected. And tell me, is there anyone that I could get in touch with? I'm looking into a possible internship in the last 3 months of doing something, or a dissertation on a particular topic. Could you connect me with someone? And I think it's very important during the year of study, start early on, connect with alumni who are in the corporate world, right? So keep that connection going. Don't just disconnect them. You inquired before you start your study. Keep that flow going. And of course, you'll come of great help when you graduate, because you become part of the alumni network and you're giving help to somebody else, right? I mean, what goes around comes around, isn't it? So in a true sense, that's what I would say is one of the important things. Now, apart from the alumni connects, there are also other industry connects that you can possibly make. Writing to people in the industry that you have either worked for in the past or what you're aiming for in the future, and then telling them, well, is there an available opportunity that you could look into in the organization? And of course, with the online stuff today, we've got a number of things that are really posted, and every now and then there's always alerts that are going to come to you with regard to the kind of applications that you can make and so on. I think one of the most sensible things to do is to aim for a dissertation, aim for an internship, which is very close to the kind of job that you want to eventually work in. Because that puts the puzzle together and said, well, I did this because I'm aiming for a job in this particular area. So it neatly, fits in, right? So I think that's the reason why it's very important to keep the year going in a very selfish manner of your career, right? I think one has to be selfish in certain ways because you want to get your career right. You've invested on yourself. You don't want this to go wrong. Sure enough, right? And that's why I think it's very important to keep all of these going. Alumni networks in the industry, and also your own connects that you actually create as well, and specific to the industries that you're aiming at. So I think it kind of neatly fits in.
All right. So I get it. It's you have the alumni network, you connect with them right at the beginning, and you continue throughout the journey, and you become a part of it at one point in time, and helping the students. Life comes full circle, as they say. So that's what it is. So it's not that, I'm at the, let's say, the last segment of my course, and then I want to hop on to some job and then just go around and, asking people, door knocking and asking, hey, can you help me? It's not like that. So you got to stay connected. And that's where the beauty of the Strathclyde's network lies, right? The alumni are here, the alumni are across the globe. There is an alumni in whatever big organizations or, organizations you're looking to work to. So you always have someone from university and, being part of it as a student, and you're going to connect with them, right?
Absolutely.
Yes. Now, moving on to your own personal experience. How was your own personal experience about all these things like career support, the alumni network, the, university's resources, which were helpful to you when you were doing your MBA at Strathclyde?
Right. I think the overwhelming part of this whole thing was in the very first 3 months because there's so much. It's a new country. It's a new style of learning. I mean, the climate is different. Every single thing that you can think of is different, right? And amidst all of this, you got to plan your career, and you've invested so much of money on yourself. There's so much going on. I think the best is to calm down and cool yourself in terms of thinking, what am I going to achieve? Have a proper, lovely diary written out in terms of what you're going to do throughout the year. And I think that's extremely, very, very important, right? And cut away with all the distractions. And when I say distractions, I don't mean a night out to have dinner and dance or whatever. I mean, please, you got to have all of that to wind down. But what I meant is disconnect from the distractions that don't mean anything to your career, right? Focus yourself in attending those seminars or webinars or whatever it may be, which are all focused towards your career. Because if you see, there's so many things that are happening throughout the year, and you might be attending things which are not relevant to you as well. So not everything is probably going to be relevant. So I think one of the things that I realized early on was, there's so much happening. I got to ask myself, what am I looking for? It's just because my colleague beside me is going to attend an event, it doesn't mean that event is useful for me, because for my career, that probably may not, right? So I think you have to have the intelligence of self-understanding that. So I think in my personal experience, that's pretty much what I did. I did have, of course, conversations with lecturers, with people, that I kind of met during the university day, where some of those students were part-time MBA students. You kind of get in touch with them because they're working adults, have conversations with them, meet people, not just the full-time students, but also the part-time students who come because they're all British citizens, working on a full-time job and doing their part-time study. Grab some of them, kind of network, understand a bit more. So I think these are things that I pretty much got myself involved in. Of course, during my time, there was less and less of online activities, and there was more face-to-face components. But now, of course, I think there's an advantage because of the online, because you can attend several events in wherever you're seated. You can have one event at 2 to 3, another one at 3 to 4, and you've never even moved from your chair. So that's the advantage that current students obviously have. But I think all the more the reason to plan very well. What are you going to make use of? So that's what pretty much I did.
Great. I think you shared very, very, I would say a very insider info from which is hard to come by with unless you were graduated from the university. So a big thanks to you for throwing light on all these aspects and helping, listeners and viewers to understand how they can build or shape their career from coming from Strathclyde, graduating from Strathclyde University. In the upcoming episode, is going to be Q&A. We're going to collect all the questions which we have received based on our episodes till we did now in the first season. And I'm going to bring that to you, and I hope you will again be able to help us out with those questions with what our listeners or viewers have. Thank you once again for
Brilliant. Your pleasure, of course.
Sharing your experience and also throwing light on the most important aspect of, passing out or graduating from Strathclyde and stepping into the world to start your career. Thank you, Nithi.
Pleasure indeed. Thank you very much for having me again.